Welcome to the virtual edition of Entangled Health. Everyone defines health differently. Nothing exists in isolation, and body, mind, environment. Everything is interconnected. Everything is entangled. My guests at Entangled Health come from all walks of life: quantum physics, AI, biotech, healing arts, and creative fields. Each brings a unique perspective where technology meets philosophy, and together we expand our horizons. We are launching the virtual series, and this is an experiment, and you can participate. Usually, my guests are alive when I speak with them, but some vital insights come from voices that are no longer with us. So instead of artificially resurrecting these voices or faking them, I choose to enter directly into the dialogue with their texts, and I do this on Substack. There you can read the full virtual conversation with my first virtual guests, Hans-Georg Gadamer, and you find the link in the comment. So, a podcast with a dead without a fake voice? That sounds tricky. So what do we have here? No fake voices of the virtual guests themselves. Instead, an AI-generated podcast featuring virtual voices about the interview, analyzing and contextualizing the content from the written conversation for you. Let me know what you think, and let's go.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're here, you know the drill. We dive into complex sources so you don't have to, and we pull out the insights you can actually use.
Today we're doing something a little different, something that sits right at the intersection of, philosophy, health, and some very modern technology.
We're focusing on the work of the German philosopher Hans-Georg Gadamer, a huge figure in the 20th century.
And specifically, we're looking at his ideas on understanding, on health, and really what it means to be human in a world that's changing so fast.
Now, the source material for this is what makes it so interesting. It's not a dry academic paper. We're working from a written virtual interview.
Right, from the Entangled Health Series. And what the author did was create a dialogue with Gadamer's actual texts, his major works like Truth and Method and The Enigma of Health.
And they were so transparent about this process. It's really refreshing.
It is. They made a very deliberate choice, a really thoughtful one, to not use any synthetic voices or AI to generate Gadamer's answers.
Which I just loved. I mean, it gets right to the heart of what we're about to talk about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Dialogue, honesty.
Exactly. The source says it was to stop the reader from being seduced into forgetting that something is being constructed. It keeps the whole encounter honest.
So our mission today is to pull out these core ideas, hermeneutics, dialogue, this concept of entanglement, and see how they apply to, everything. Modern medicine, AI, our own search for meaning.
It's all connected. And the whole thing kicks off with this beautiful quote about friendship. He calls it a mirror of self-knowledge.
But it's the last part that really hits. The most beautiful and consoling part, he says, is seeing what could still apply to oneself.
The subjunctive, that potential. It's not about who you are, but who you could become through that encounter with another person. It's a beautiful starting point.
Okay, let's unpack this. For anyone listening who might not have a philosophy degree, let's talk about the big one, hermeneutics.
Right. In simple terms, hermeneutics is the art and science of understanding, of interpretation.
And we're doing it all the time, right?
Constantly. Reading an email, trying to figure out what your boss really means, looking at a piece of art. That's all hermeneutics. Gadamer just took it and applied it to, all of human experience.
And his big controversial point, especially for us today, was that understanding is not a matter of method.
Yes. And that is so counterintuitive for us. We're all about the 5-step plan, the algorithm, the checklist.
We think if we just follow the steps, we'll get the right answer.
And Gadamer says, no, that's not how deep understanding works. It's not a mechanical process. It's an active human engagement.
But wait a minute. In medicine, method is everything. The scientific method, clinical trials. You can't just throw that out, can you? Isn't that dangerous?
That's a perfect question. He's not saying get rid of method altogether. He's saying it has limits. Method can give you data. It can give you a diagnosis. But it can't give you meaning.
So the lab results are the method.
Exactly. But true healing, that requires the doctor to understand the patient's whole story, their life, their context. And that part, that is not a method.
Which brings us to its most famous idea, the fusion of horizons. Horizontenverschmelzung. It sounds so grand.
It is. But the concept is actually quite intuitive. Your horizon is basically everything you can see from your vantage point, your knowledge, your culture, your history, and your prejudgments.
He used the word prejudice in a neutral way, didn't he?
Completely. For him, a prejudice is just a pre-understanding. It's the starting point you need to even begin to understand anything. You can't start from zero.
So they're like the tools I bring to the conversation.
Precisely. And the fusion happens when your horizon meets someone else's. You don't just adopt their view and they don't adopt yours. In that space between you, something new emerges, a shared understanding.
So I have to be willing to be changed by the conversation.
That's the absolute key.
Yeah.
Gadamer said we must be wanting to let something be said. It's a radical openness. And you can see how vital that is for a doctor listening to a patient.
That idea of being open, of being entangled with the other person, leads us right to the title of the source. Entangled Health. What did he mean by that?
For him, entangled was this perfect word to describe how we exist in history. He said, history does not belong to us, but rather we to it.
So we're not outside of it looking in, we're woven into it.
Exactly. And health is the same. It's not some objective thing we can control from a distance. It's a process, an event that we are living inside of. It's always dynamic.
So health isn't a thing you possess like a car. It's more like a state of being in balance with the world.
A dynamic balance. He used the Greek word metrion. It's not a static, perfect balance. It's more like an inner sense of appropriateness, a constant adjustment. Health is the ability to maintain that inner accord.
And there's a paradox here, isn't there? Something about health being hidden.
Yes, that's one of his most profound points. Health, he says, hides itself in its very functioning.
Meaning when you have it, you don't notice it.
Think about it. When you feel great, you're not thinking about your lungs or your heart rate. You're just living, absorbed in what you're doing. You only become aware of your health when it's gone.
It's a state of integration.
Perfect word. A state of integration into life.
Let's pull on that thread of entanglement. In physics, you have quantum entanglement. Two particles linked, no matter the distance. Can we apply that metaphorically? Does that kind of deep human recognition create a sort of psychosocial entanglement that can actually affect healing?
The source argues very strongly, yes. Gadamer himself would be cautious with the physics term, but the principle is the same. The act of truly seeing, of recognizing another person, that's a transformative act. It changes reality.
So it's not a one-way street. When a doctor really listens, they're not just gathering data. They're co-creating a space where healing can happen.
That's the mechanism. The quality of the attention itself becomes a therapeutic agent. And modern science is catching up to this.
You mean like neuroscience or psychoneuroimmunology?
Exactly. The study of how your mind and your relationships affect your immune system. There's growing evidence that deep mutual engagement can literally modulate physiological processes in the body.
So the takeaway for you listening is, you don't heal alone.
Never. The source says this is why a good word, a deep listening, or a look of trust can sometimes shift the course of an illness. It awakens something latent in the person.
Okay, but if healing is so dependent on this deep human presence, where does that leave all our technology, our algorithms, our AI?
Gadamer was already grappling with this. He was deeply skeptical of any promise of absolute certainty. Since understanding isn't a method, he knew that AI could be a powerful calculator.
It can spot patterns we can't.
For sure. But it lacks the bodily, historical, lived experience required for genuine understanding.
Which is the critical distinction now with large language models, with LLMs. The source asks that question directly. Can an LLM ever achieve real Gadamerian understanding?
And based on his work, the answer has to be no. They're amazing, don't get me wrong, but they are statistical echoes. They rearrange human language based on probability. They mimic meaning. They don't create it.
And the distinction lies in risk, doesn't it? An LLM can write a beautiful paragraph about courage, but it risks nothing by writing it.
That is the entire point. It's detached from lived experience. It's never felt pain or fear or hope. It doesn't bear what he called existential risk. When a machine tells you something, it's indifferent. When a human tells you something, they are implicated. They have skin in the game.
So if we just chase efficiency and data, we risk losing that essential humanity. So how do we innovate without losing our souls?
Gadamer actually gives us a really helpful path. He says, tradition is not a burden, but a resource.
So don't throw everything out.
No, you enter into a dialogue with it. You test your own assumptions, your own prejudices. The real danger is what he called the tyranny of hidden prejudices, where we become so focused on what's measurable that we forget to ask if it's meaningful.
Let's bring this back to health. We're all tracking our steps, our sleep, quantifying everything. What did Gadamer see as the biggest mistake we make in thinking about health?
It's that very idea, treating health as simply the absence of illness. It's the clinical view. The check boxes are all clear, so you must be healthy.
But that's not the whole story.
Not even close. For him, health is integration into life, a state of an active and rewarding participation in everyday duties. It's about functioning well in your world.
It's that unspectacular miracle again. Being so absorbed in living that you don't even think about it.
Absolutely. The disease is what we can measure and pinpoint. True health, this deep sense of inner accord, it sort of defies objective scientific methods of measurement. It's just living.
And yet, even with all this uncertainty and mystery, he was a huge advocate for hope.
He insisted on it. He said, people cannot live without hope. The goal isn't perfect certainty. The goal is to keep the dialogue going.
I have to say, I loved the little personal story from the interview. It really brings all this high-level philosophy right down to earth.
And comfort food question.
Yes, what's your go-to comfort food after a long day of quantum thinking?
And his answer was perfect. Very strong coffee.
But not just as fuel.
No, that's the key. He described it as a ritual pause, a moment to anchor his abstract thoughts back into his living, breathing body. A reminder that thinking doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a body, in a place, in a time.
That's a beautiful thought. And speaking of questions, he actually offered one back to the project for us.
He did. And it feels like he wrote it this morning. He asked, in a world increasingly shaped by rapid technological change and constant demands for certainty, how can we cultivate the art of genuinely living with uncertainty, ambiguity, and not knowing?
That is the challenge, isn't it, for all of us?
It is. And his answer is his whole philosophy in a nutshell. It's an act of courage. It's sustaining that tension between what you know and what you don't. It's being open to being changed by the world. It is the highest form of responsiveness.
He had a final message in the source, a kind of closing statement.
He did. He said the real value of everything, health, science, technology, it all lies in encounter. And that what is said in language constitutes the common world in which we live. That's where it all happens, in that shared world we build with words.
So, what does this all mean? For you listening, navigating your life, your work.
I think it means we have to consciously practice embracing not knowing. To see that understanding isn't a final destination, it's a process. And that health isn't a possession to be guarded, but a dynamic accord we have to constantly cultivate.
And you can apply this everywhere. That difficult conversation at work. That's an opportunity for a fusion of horizons, that new AI tool. It's an invitation to a new kind of dialogue, not a replacement for your own messy human understanding.
Exactly. So we'll leave you with this last thought from Gadamer. He suggested that in healing, the structure of play absorbs the player into itself and thus frees him from the burden of taking the initiative.
So, if that's true, what parts of your own life, your health, your work, your relationships, are you trying so hard to control that you might benefit from simply letting play? People cannot live without hope.
And that was Entangled Health, the virtual series. Thank you very much for listening to this experiment, and see you next time. You can find the link to the full article in the comments, and feel free to share your thoughts there. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay kind, stay curious, and keep exploring with Entangled Health.